Hi guys. Okay, we're going to be doing slides 78 through 164 today, finishing up progressivism. As you know from the president's quiz that you have to know today, we have McKinley, and then the three progressive presidents, Teddy, Taft, Wilson, and then we have Harding, Coolidge, Hoover's, the Roaring Twenties, and then FDR and Truman, World War II. Make sure that you know all of these people for your quiz the next time I see you. All right. Progressivism. Caring for the consumer. Teddy Roosevelt has 3 C's. Progressivism has 3 C's. Control the corporations. In other words, lock in those captains of industry. Make sure that they can't take advantage of everybody all of the time anymore. Consumer protection. The jungle, muckrakers, other people that are making sure that the consumers don't have terrible products that could hurt or kill them, FDA, Meat Inspection Act, and control of corporations, consumer protection, and conservation. Back on my wall back there, I think some of you know that I have a picture of John Muir and Teddy Roosevelt, and Teddy creates lots and lots of national parks and wildlife preserves and bird sanctuaries to protect the environment from the big business, from controlling corporations, from big business that want to rape, rob, and pillage our beautiful lands. Okay, so Teddy defied the buyer beware attitude inherent in laissez-faire economics and established government regulation of the food and medicine consumed by Americans. So again, laissez-faire meant no regulations, and Teddy Roosevelt said, nah, we're done with that. Upton Sinclair's The Jungle made Americans aware of meatpacking industry horrors. We've talked about it, that people getting their arms cut off and being fired and losing their jobs, about rats or other things like being mixed into the meat, and they still process the meat and send it out anyway, and the despicable, horrible conditions in the meatpacking industry, and blood and guts all over the place. They talk about people walking in Chicago and Green Bay, it's freezing, and that they didn't have heat or anything like that. Remember, a lot of the places they don't have any heat or air conditioning, anything like that yet in the early 1900s, and that they would have so much blood and guts by their feet and everything that their feet would freeze, covered in all of these blood and guts. It's unbelievable. This is a story. The meat would be shoved into carts, and the man who did the shoveling would not trouble to lift out a rat, even when he saw one. There were things that went into sausage in comparison with which a poisoned rat was just a tidbit. There was no place for the men to wash their hands before they ate dinner, so they made a practice of washing them in the water that was to be ladled into the sausage. There were the butt ends of smoked meat and the scraps of corned beef and all the odds and ends of the waste plants that would be dumped into old barrels in the cellar and left there. Under the system of rigid economy, which the packers enforced, there were some jobs that it only paid to do once in a long time, and among that was the cleaning out of the waste barrels. Every spring they did it, and the barrels would be dirt and rust and nails and stale water, and cartload after cartload of it would be taken and dumped into the hoppers with fresh meat and sent out to the public breakfast. They would just throw it in there. Who cares? What? That's from The Jungle, Upton Sinclair. The Meat Inspection Act was stated that the preparation of meat shipped over state lines can be inspected by the federal government. Again, you know about the Interstate Commerce Act. That would have been one of the ways that we could do that, is because of interstate commerce. Anything shipped over state line is affected by Interstate Commerce Act. The Meat Inspection Act also, which is new from Teddy. Cocaine toothache drops. You're welcome. Here, little kitty, feel better, have some cocaine. I think some of you also know Coca-Cola, that Coca-Cola started. It was cocaine in the Coca-Cola. Pure Food and Drug Act prevented false labeling of food and medicines. A long time ago, like we talked about The Wizard of Oz, and you see the guy that would be Oz in the very beginning of the movie, and he's a medicine salesman, and he drives around in the cart and sells medicines. A lot of this medicine salesmen were called snake oil salesmen, because they would say, oh, I have this snake oil, it'll cure all the diseases, and in 9 out of 10 times it was just alcohol added to some other thing, and it was not snake oil by any means, and people just made up medicines and said it could cure all these things and people would buy it, but there's no FDA, no Food and Drug Act to make sure that it was exactly what it said it was. And so Teddy creates that. So these snake oil salesmen and the people that are selling just about anything they want cannot do that any longer. Mary had a little lamb, and when she saw it sicken, she shipped it off to Packingtown, and now it's labeled chicken. So again, I think I told you before that today if a cow dies on the way in transit to the meatpacking house or right there at the meatpacking house, if it died before it was butchered, you're not allowed to use it because we don't know how it died. It could have died of a disease or some other thing. But back then, oh well, good enough. I don't care how it died. We'll take it. Coca-Cola. Swamp root, kidney, liver, and bladder cure. All sorts of cures for everything. Everybody had a cure. These new acts also made American food more appealing in European markets because they knew that we had certain protocols that they made sure to make sure that the meat was safe and fresh. Okay, our first green president, environment, environment, environment. So we talked about controlling captains of industry. We talked about just now about protecting the consumer, and then now conservation. Teddy Roosevelt was an avid outdoorsman, sought to protect the resources and natural beauty of the U.S. against ravages of big business and an expanding population. So this is going to factor in when we talk later this week about imperialism in World War I, is that imperialism, the whole point of imperialism is industrialization, and especially Britain and France and a few other European countries go all over the world and they take over places, empire, they create an empire, imperialism, and it's because they want the raw materials from all of those places. Then they send it back to their own country to manufacture it and get rich by manufacturing it in their own country. And then they even go back to the same places and sell it back as a finished product for way, way, way very high, very expensive prices. So that is what Teddy is not going to let happen to our own country, that he's not going to let us rape, rob, and pillage our own country. FYI, he believes in imperialism and going to other countries and taking their raw materials, but he's not going to let it happen to our lands. So come on, Teddy. Be consistent, buddy. America's wasting and destroying natural resources rapidly. Iron ore mining, coal mining, silver and gold mining, just destroying our natural resources. Cross-cutting woods and timber. In 1891, the Forest Reserve Act stated that the president could protect federal land as national parks. Everybody's cutting down trees like crazy to be able to build houses and to build other things. Everybody was cutting down timber. So he preserved a lot of national parks. All of these, so many, the different dates. That's John Muir and Teddy Roosevelt. That's the picture. That's back in the back. That's the picture. This is John Muir. He was an avid hunter and outdoorsman who wanted further conservation. For him, protecting the forests and protecting the mountains and everything else meant that he could go hunting and there would be wild animals to hunt in those places. As a conservationist, he didn't believe in not hunting. He did hunt like crazy. He was a very avid hunter. He liked hunting. And so the natural wilderness would have those animals for him. John Muir equals Sierra Club. Teddy was helped by Gifford Pinchot, the first chief of the U.S. Forest Service. He's going to come into play later in our course, so you have to know about Gifford Pinchot and the U.S. Forest Service. The Newlands Act funded irrigation projects in the West. Some of the Rocky Mountains give water all the way down into California because California doesn't have enough fresh water. So we've made irrigation projects that get the snow from the mountaintop that melts in the spring to be rivers, and they redirect a lot of it to the West Coast into California for fresh water. California and the West are a huge part of our bread basket. Like, we make a lot of food out in California for the country. By 1900, only 25% of U.S. forests were intact. So Teddy set aside 125 million acres of natural timberland because so many places were being clear cut down, for farming or for the timber. Conservation remains one of Teddy's most important achievements still today. So many of these parks, lots and lots of national parks. Actually, Trump has just now gotten rid of some of them and sold them off to big business, just like he would not have wanted to happen. The Rough Riders, thunders out. Rough Riders, Teddy. Teddy Roosevelt redefined the American presidency, having refused to simply be the face of a political party and instead insisting on serving the best interests of the American people. Rough Riders, Teddy. Oh, that's famous. Teddy was very popular, but his progressivism angered many conservatives. Teddy, it wasn't a cub, but Teddy, somebody brought Teddy a bear that was on a rope, And they were like, here, shoot this bear, Mr. President, shoot this bear. And he's like, no way. Like, I'm not shooting a bear that is already chained or something like that. I will hunt a bear down in the wild, but not one that you bring me. And so everybody got word of this. They made it in all the national papers. And so very soon after, companies were making teddy bears. And that's why all the little kids have had teddy bears for the past 120 years, is because of Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy announced he would not seek re-election in 1908. So he finished McKinley's second term, and then he had his own term, but then he said he would not seek re-election in 1908. He goes hunting. He goes on a trip for 2 years, hunting all over the world. For 2 years, he's on this big, huge trip all over the world. Teddy was blamed for a quick, intense Wall Street panic in 1907. He chose William Howard Taft to succeed him. You have to know, he chose Taft. Said, we should have Taft be the next president. Because again, Taft is going to be the most voracious. He was the biggest trust buster, but we refer to Teddy as the trust buster. But Taft actually busted more trust, monopolies, big, huge companies, than did Teddy, and faster. But we still give Teddy credit for that. The Democrat, William Jennings Bryan, runs for the third time. William Jennings Bryan. And Eugene V. Debs runs for president in the Socialist. You have to know about that. Eugene V. Debs. If I remember correctly, he runs 4 times, the last time from prison during World War I. Okay, which will you have, Bill Taft or Bill Bryan? And I think you know what the answer is. Teddy left the presidency for a lion hunt, survived, and came home with lots of energy. He hunted all over the world. Famous hunter. Killed lots and lots and lots and lots of wild animals. Almost 12,000. Teddy had set many precedents, challenged trust, and helped many average Americans. He launched the Square Deal and awoke the U.S. from an isolationist slumber. Teddy prevented socialism, was a great conservationist, expanded the powers of the president, and shaped the progressive movement. Oh, good to the last drop. Teddy's the one that famously said, good to the last drop. He was the first one to fly in an airplane, to be submerged in a submarine, to own a car, to have a telephone in his home, to travel outside the borders of the U.S. while still a president, to entertain an African American in the White House, and win the Nobel Prize as an American. He was first for all of those things. Okay, Taft, a round peg in a square hole. I'm going to stop and then start the video, a new video again, because I'm getting a text and I forgot to put it on airplane mode, so I'm afraid you can't hear me just like before. I'll be back in a second.